Welcome to Cultimatum, the podcast that delves deep into the culture of complexities of cults and human trafficking. I'm your host, Anonymous Andrew. Each week, we explore different facets of cult life and human trafficking, from the psychological manipulation to the brave stories of those who have escaped.
Hello, everyone. I'm Melody. I'm Andrew's co-host. Having experienced the depth of a cult firsthand, specifically the House of Yahweh, I'm here as an advocate for fellow survivors. My journey has inspired me to help others who find themselves in similar situations. This podcast is committed to respecting our guests' privacy. To ensure their comfort and safety, we offer them the option to remain anonymous.
Additionally, we would like to include a disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Cultimatum or its affiliates. Cultimatum is not responsible and does not verify for accuracy any of the information shared by our hosts and guests. The content discussed on this podcast is based on personal experiences, opinions, and speculation, and should not be construed as professional services or advice. Neither the host nor the guest are assuming liability for any misuse or reliance on the information presented. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and seek professional advice where appropriate.
Before we dive into today's episode, we want to issue a trigger warning. Some episodes may explore explicit and potentially disturbing topics such as sexual abuse, rape, human trafficking, suicide, and other sensitive subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Cultimatum Podcast, the culture of cults and human trafficking. And my name is Anonymous Andrew, and with me is my co-host, Melody. Hello, Melody.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I am... It's a loaded question. But no, and seriously, I'm doing great. Little sad the summer's coming to an end, but in a good... So, because that's my time of year where I can repower. Right. The solar is my higher power kind of, and it rejuvenates me. But on the other end, with the colder months coming, it gives me the time to catch up on all the podcast work. And folks, there's a lot of podcast work in doing podcast isn't what you think it is. It's a real job. So to the audience,
silver lining.
Yes, very much so. We're going to do something a little different, and it's kind of a beta thing, but I think Melody came up with the idea. We're going to start watching all these cult documentaries that are on all the platforms, like almost seems like Amazon, Netflix, I don't know if Paramount has them, Hulu, HBO, and I'm probably missing one or two that have multiple documentaries on all different cults. We may not necessarily either get a guest from that cult, or we just don't want to ignore them. And because if a streaming service is doing a documentary on a cult, it's a relevant thing. They wouldn't put all the time and effort into doing it if it wasn't relevant. So, all right. So I'll pass this to you. You can tell the audience which cult we're going to. So basically, Melanie and I watched the documentary, and now we're gonna comment on it, discuss it. Yeah.
Yes.
Tell the audience what we got.
Okay, I'm gonna start by giving a summary of the documentary that we watched and the title. It was called Holy Hell, which is the Buddafield cult. It is available on Amazon Prime, Peacock, Tubi, and Freevee. And it was a spiritual group based out of Los Angeles originally. But I'm going to read a summary of that documentary that we watched. Holy Hell was created in 2016, a documentary directed by Will Allen, a former member of Buddafield cult, who spent over 20 years in the group. The film chronicles his personal experience and those of fellow members, offering an intimate look at life inside the cult and the manipulative practices of its leader, known as Michelle, or the teacher. He went by a lot of different names. Reiki.
He did.
Yes, Andreas. He
Michelle.
changed his name. Yes, Michelle. Michelle, I think, was kind of the main one, but the Buddafield cult formed in the 1980s, attracting young, idealistic followers who sought spiritual enlightenment and community. Initially, the group focused on meditation, yoga, and communal living, promoting an atmosphere of peace and love. Over time, however, it became clear that Michelle was exerting total control over his followers, demanding loyalty, orchestrating isolation from the outside world, and manipulating members emotionally and sexually. Allen's footage captured over decades reveals both the blissful facade of the life inside the cult and the darker and more sinister undercurrents. Members recount their growing disillusionment as they began to recognize the psychological abuse and coercion that Michelle was using to maintain his power. Eventually, several members, including Allen, escaped, leading to the cult's exposure. The documentary not only tells the story of the Buddafield cult, but it also offers a broader exploration of how people can be drawn into a charismatic leader's orbit and how difficult it can be to break free. Through firsthand accounts, Holy Hell paints a vivid picture of the allure and the dangers of such groups, making it a gripping and emotional tale of spiritual betrayal and recovery. So we'll start. I'll let you kind of give your first impressions of it, and then I'll give mine, Andrew. So I'm going to throw it back your direction for a minute here.
Okay. So Melody came to me and with the idea, and so I watched the first. We have a list of them we're going to watch, and I got my little cup of ice cream and I sat in bed and I started to watch. And Melody kind of warned me ahead of time. She was like, "Holy hell, holy shit!" It was like,
Yes.
So I was expecting wild, crazy, whatever. But it was interesting because I guess, I don't know, Alan, the gentleman Alan who produced it, the way he presented it in the beginning made it look it almost looked like, wow, this looks like a very peaceful, loving. It kind of brought me back, even though I'm not really a product of the 60s and 70s. Yeah. I was a young boy, but there was this peace movement, the hippie movement, and it kind of reminded me. Yeah, they showed endless pictures or films or videos of them dancing in the forest, dancing. I don't know if it was the ocean or a lake. They were swimming. They were holding hands. They were forming circles. And everybody looked happy. And there were like these group hugs in the lake or whatever body of water they were in. And I'm sitting here going, I don't see anything wrong with this. But of course, the best was yet to come.
The shit hadn't hit the fan yet.
The shit, no, exactly. And then it started getting a little bit. I loved the way he produced it. He did a great job because he showed like it was a peaceful thing, but then he started dropping the red flags, and I knew, and I'm going to give away a little bit of the crux of the whole thing. The leader was a gay man. And I think his intention of the whole thing was to have sex. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. We'll discuss it. He had already performed many gay pornos. And he was also an actor who did come to America to become an actor. I don't think he was born here. His name was Jamie Castro or Jamie Castillo, Gomez. And he came here looking for acting, and he actually appeared. What was the movie he appeared in?
Rosemary's Baby.
Yes, he was in Rosemary Baby for 3 seconds at the end, where all you saw his face. So that was the extent of his famous Hollywood,
his acting career. That was it.
Thank you. That was it. And in the typical fashion of a cult leader, which many of them are very intelligent. They're very good at manipulation. I don't remember exactly if the documentary explained how he did it, but he started marketing like all these people, like I can free you from your spiritual prison and all this stuff. And it
Yes.
really, like I said, at the beginning, it looked peaceful and nice. But
Yes.
as it
Looked
went
like a
on,
cult I might want to join.
yeah, yeah, right. And of course, we always say we never wake up joining a cult. We join an organization. But
Right.
it to me, it soon became clear that this was a cult. While the leader didn't, he did follow the playbook. You know, we always talk about that playbook
Yes.
that all the
Yes.
cult leaders. He did
Yes.
folall that because he
Oh,
said
he
if
did.
you leave,
He received his copy in the
yeah,
mail.
he did. He subscribed to that
Yes.
magazine or whatever.
How to be a cult leader.
So anybody who was thinking of leaving, he told them exactly what all the other cult leaders: you're going to get cancer, you're going to die, you're going to,
Your life's going to go
all this
downhill.
wacky,
Yes.
wacky stuff. There was the rule that nobody could date within the community. So there was even a woman who had a crush on some guy, and she slept with him, and she got pregnant, and he made her have an abortion. And then she got upset about that, and she got pregnant again, and I think she had a second abortion because he made her. I don't know if I want to say he made her, but he said that you can't be part of this cult.
Yes, I was going to say. Otherwise, she was going to be kicked out.
Kicked out. And no baby.
And I'm going to add,
he didn't want any baby.
Yes, I'm going to add that in the 20-some years that the producer of this documentary was part of this cult, not one child was born. And not only did he ask them to abstain from dating, he asked them to abstain from sex completely. So it wasn't even just dating. He was telling them not to have sex at all. So he was controlling that aspect of all of the members' lives. And then it turned out that there was a very sinister reason, which what I find interesting is really he pretty much did what all cult leaders do. It's just that he was attracted to men instead of women. He was isolating all the men in the cult in order so that he was the only one who had sexual access to them, the same way that cult leaders that are straight tend to do with women. So it was interesting and different in that way.
And he did it, if I remember, by having them come to therapy. So he would offer therapy sessions, charge them $50, but at the end of the therapy is when he seduced them. And I think most, if not all, of the men were heterosexual, and yet they succumbed to his seduction. And there were men, and I give them a lot of praise and kudos and all that stuff for admitting that they had oral sex and anal sex and all that stuff, even though it was completely against their would you say?
And they were basic. It didn't come naturally for them, and it wasn't really what they wanted to do. But they were coerced. They were the frog in the boiling water, and they were slowly not just, I think, coerced, but in my opinion, brainwashed to do this, because they talk about the hypnosis techniques that were used. I almost think a lot of the men were agreeing to this because they were being influenced, when they were under the influence of hypnosis.
And this guy, Jamie or Michelle, whatever his name, because he went by so many names.
The teacher.
He would then, he would make it so, once again, it was spiritual. He took everybody out to these beautiful places, and they dance in the forest, and they tell them that you're going to be spiritually free. All this nonsense, cockamamie stuff. So maybe we should talk a little bit about.
He was basically saying that he had the ability to give them the knowing, which the knowing was basically, I from my understanding, allowing God's spirit to enter them, and they would know God. And
I don't think he had anything. He had no. I don't think he had any belief in God. I think that was all a ruse.
No, I think that was a manipulation tactic for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think part of the way he got people into this thing of serving him, because it started out slowly to where they felt like they had a purpose because they were all doing what they called service. And that included, some of them were taking care of like handicapped members of the group, I think they said a quadriplegic or a paraplegic was part of the group, and they would take turns caring for this handicapped member.
Yes.
And then essentially then they were also serving him, making him breakfast, cooking for him, cleaning for him, carrying a chair around on their back for him.
Yes,
crazy
I was
stuff.
just gonna say they had somebody that were his entourage that would anywhere they went, they carried his throne, and then they would put it down. He would sit in his throne, and they would feed him, almost like it reminded me of Caesar from the Roman times or something.
Yeah,
like he would sit there and be like service. What really caught my attention, and I don't think the people that were in this cult organization knew about this, but they found footage of him in gay pornography, and they blocked out the actual hardcore stuff.
I think that was found either close to when they were getting ready to leave or after they left. I'm not sure which, but it sounds like they had heard rumors previous, but I think they were kind of didn't want to believe them, and so didn't really look into it to see if they were true. But I think as they were either getting ready to leave or left, they did the research and found out that the rumors were true. And just a trigger warning for if you're going to go watch it. Yes, there are clips in there. Yes,
I was just going to say that trigger warning. There are clips of sexual or gay pornography actions, and they just put a little block over the penis, or they put a little block over.
And it's not a big part of the film. It's not a big part.
It's not a big part. But when I saw it, I took a gasp. I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yes.
So just be forewarned. You will see a little bit of that, but it like Melody said, it's not the whole thing. But I think
they have it blocked out. Yeah, they don't show anything.
But I think they were trying to make a point. Right, but I think they were trying to make the point that he was a failed Los Angeles, a Hollywood actor, and he turned to this. And what I thought was he did have this peaceful, serene look to him. Of course, I believe it was all an act, but when he would come up to somebody and put his hands on their face, and not being gay or not being into men, he was not a bad looking guy. I don't know what you thought, but he was
no, he was in good shape.
He was in good shape. Oh yeah, he was. Oh my God, he was like built.
Like he worked out every day. They talked about that. Did ballet,
and he walked. And what did he do? How did he walk around most of the time?
Oh, always very, very studious, head held high, and very good posture.
But he wore what we called back then
a Speedo. A Speedo almost all the time.
Always had a Speedo on. So he walked around virtually naked except for the Speedo. And so what climate they were living in, it was warm. Anyway, to me, it was your typical narcissistic cult leader who needed people around him. But I think ultimately it was just his way of getting gay sex out of men who were not willing participants. And when we're ready to get to the part where I want to know why there wasn't any kind of law enforcement, because I think, well, maybe we're not up to that part yet, but
we can go there now, Andrew. I mean,
why didn't Alan sue him, or why didn't there? I think there was one scene where the authorities were onto him. It was either the FBI or somebody.
It was the Cult Awareness Network, and I think they were onto him, and they were just kind of investigating and asking questions. I don't know that the Cult Awareness Network necessarily is involved in prosecuting cult leaders. I would have to do a little bit more research on that myself, but they are involved in trying to help people get out of cults and deprogram from cults. But my theory on that, Andrew, is this. I believe that and he was very, very strategic. Remember, he didn't want children in that cult. He did not want any children around. And he also didn't want dogs, but that's another story. I think they said he just didn't like animals. And
thank God, thank God he didn't have children there, because I can only imagine.
Oh,
what
But
kind
I
of a
think,
clusterfuck that would have been.
oh yes, no, exactly. No, that is a good thing. But I think that that may have been strategic for him because he everyone that was in that cult was, as far as I know, at least 18 or older. They were mostly young people.
Yes.
People that, when you're in the best shape of your life, probably from 18 to 30s, were most of the members. And they were mostly beautiful people, mostly thin people in good shape.
Yep.
He wanted to surround himself with a certain look of people. He wanted beautiful people. And I think that the reason that they can't prosecute Andrew, I think, is because they were all, because you can't
Willing
prove consent.
participants.
They were consenting adults. And even let's look at La Luz de Mundo, for example. You think about La Luz de Mundo, that leader is in prison. But is he in prison for doing things to adult women? No, he's not.
No,
he's in prison because he also went after people who were underage. So that's where he crossed the line and broke the law. I think technically he didn't break any laws. And how do you prove that you were hypnotized or manipulated or coerced into doing something you essentially didn't want to do? How do you prove that? I just think it's not provable in court.
You can't. You're right. And it's because he was a master manipulator and was able to gaslight and I keep going back to this. He would have men come in for therapy and charge them, which I thought was weird because he was going to get sex at the end. If I was a cult leader and I was going to get laid by a guy, I'd give him free therapy. But that's just charity at my heart. But he charged them $50 and then he raped them. I'm going to say rape because these guys were not expecting that. But you're right. They willingly I always have a problem with this. They partook, they partaked, whatever. They
participated.
But somehow, thank you. They took their clothes off and they performed oral sex and they had whatever. We don't have to be descriptive. But when Melody said, "Watch this, holy shit," that's exactly what I thought about halfway through. I was like, "Holy shit." Well,
here's the thing. Holy hell. Very, very, very good title, because after I watched it, I thought, holy hell, what did I just watch?
Right.
So
it was very disturbing. And this was back in the late 80s, early 90s. Also, I think there were no drugs allowed, no alcohol.
Yep.
I'm not so sure about the alcohol, but there were no drugs allowed. And they did interview many or several of the people who had left years earlier, and now they're 30 or 40 or 50.
Yes.
And they were doing well. They had moved on with their life.
I kind of like how they did that, Andrew, to where when you first start watching it, you're thinking, this doesn't look so bad. I mean, this looks like a fun little hippie commune, right? I mean, everybody's helping each other. Everybody's living it looked like something I might want to be involved in. And they had even said at the beginning, one of the members said, if we're in a cult, at least it's a good one.
And he did what a lot of the cult leaders do. He told the men, don't talk to the other men about what we did. So if the man went into therapy and had gay sex with him, they weren't supposed to talk about it. And they also separated them from their families. So many of what you and I have coming across in our interviews, he practiced. Don't talk about it.
Yes.
Don't talk to your families. They could. I don't think families could come visit. They did interview a couple of moms and dads and sisters about it. So he followed that playbook that we keep talking about. That somebody somewhere put together a playbook and he followed it to the T.
Yes, he sent out for that playbook and got it in the mail and thought, I'm going to start my own cult and this is what I'm going to do. It's crazy. It is. It's crazy how the similarities in all these cults, it just blows my mind. And like I said, really, basically, he did what a lot of these, like La Luz de Mundo, the House of Yahweh, these cults do, except instead of victimizing the women, he was victimizing the men.
The
It
men.
was,
Yeah.
yes, because that's who he was
Which,
attracted to. So he
which was a
isolated
very
them all
big,
and wanted them all for himself.
and there was a big twist in this one because
Yes.
out of all the interviews we've done, we haven't come across anything of the gay nature. And
Right.
of course, we don't judge, and we don't
Right. And we don't care. It's
yeah,
just interesting.
live free and live and live free is my motto. I have no problem with that, but except in the way he did it, and
Right. No.
very
Exactly.
disturbing, very disturbing.
Yes.
When it was over, so let's talk about the ending, because at the ending, most of the people left, but somehow he recruited more. Now, Melody
And a
and
few
I,
stayed.
and a few did stay. And as a matter of fact, at the end, they showed, as they're doing the credits, they showed the people who stayed and the people who left. They flashed
Yes.
pictures of them. And there was like Joe
Yes.
stayed, Mary left, Jane stayed, John
Yeah.
left. What I didn't like about the documentary was at the very end, there was like, it just ended. And there was
Right.
nothing to tell me, is this cult still alive today? Is this leader still around? You and I discussed before we started recording, they are
Yeah.
now based, maybe not based, but they just had a festival in the United Kingdom. So he and remember, he flew to Hawaii. They kept flying
Yes.
him to Hawaii. So I don't know, even though Hawaii is one of the part of the states, I don't know if of course, every state has an extradition law. I don't know why they kept flying him to Hawaii, but finally they got him out of the country, because I think maybe
Right.
the authorities or somebody, the noose was tightening on him.
Yes.
So they got him
And
out.
what did he do?
So,
Every time the authorities were getting close, Andrew, he would change location. Started in California, moved to Austin,
exactly.
Texas, ended up in Hawaii. Every time he felt the heat, he would run. And he would change his name.
He always went to a warm climate too. It was
Yes.
always
Well,
like
because he wants
paradise.
to be able to
It
wear
was
his
some sort of
banana hammock.
paradise. Yeah. Yep.
You can't do that in cold climates.
So
Oh.
I left watching, when I finished watching that, I had so many more questions, like, where is he today? What is he doing today? Did he stop doing it? Is he still doing it? And apparently he's still doing it. And it may have even grown. At that time when we watched the documentary, there were only maybe 30 people, right, in the
Something
commune?
like that. I would say 30 to 50, somewhere in there, but it wasn't. And now, I know that toward the end of the documentary, when they went and tracked him down in Hawaii, I think they said that they believed he had around 100 members at that point. I think that was what they said. I remember right.
The Buddafield Festival took place in July 12th of 2023 in Blackdown Hills, Somerset, England. And it is estimated up to 4,000 people attended that festival. So that's that from going to 20 to 30 to 4,000 people somehow washed his hands of the gay image, or
just the abuse image.
I'll never get why people, because this documentary I don't think was very new. I think this documentary had been around a while. So
2016 is when it came out.
Okay, so it's almost 10 years old, and yet more people are joining this. Of course, these 4,000 people who are now in this commune, I'm going to call it a commune, but it's a cult.
Right.
They may not have seen this documentary. It's kind of buried in Amazon. We watched it on Amazon, and you have to look it up. It wasn't like on the top screen, so it's not something easily found. To the audience, if you would like to watch this, it is on Amazon. It's free if you have Prime, and it's called Holy Hell. Melody, would you like to do, by the way, this is Melody and I's first attempt at this. We're going to start watching cult videos, documentary, I should say, and we're going to comment on them. I would like to give it we probably should have discussed this before off mic.
Yeah, I thought of this as well. So you like stars,
thumbs up,
stars out
thumbs
of,
down. As far as the documentary goes, do we want to recommend the audience to watch it, or just say it's not?
Well, I would say we might have different opinions. I mean, I think you give your opinion and then I can give mine, because we may have different opinions on that, right?
I'm not saying collectively.
I would say, I think that's not a bad idea.
Your recommendation to the audience: watch it or no? Like, spend an hour of your evening watching it or don't? Is it? I guess it also depends on the audience who's listening. If you're a cult,
right?
There are a lot of people out there who are into true crime stuff, right? They watch the Discovery ID or whatever it's called. They watch True Court TV and all that stuff. I even watch some of that stuff sometimes, because they open up cold cases from 30 years ago and they solve them sometimes.
Yes. Or there are some people that like documentaries in general, just any kind of documentary.
I watched it for this show, but this is so like Melody and I said, we're gonna make our own whatever suggestion.
Right.
At the end of it, I was not fulfilled in where this cult is today, where this leader is today. I had more questions at the end than I had answers. My personal opinion is, don't waste your time. We basically just told you everything about it. But with that said, if you're into true crime or you're into cult documentaries and you like to keep up with the fact that this guy's still up and around and still going on. And by the way, he was young and handsome back in the 1990s. We are talking 30 years later. So I don't even know what he looks like now.
I would say I'm on the fence. I'm 50-50. If I had to give it stars, I would give it like maybe 5.5 stars out of 10. I would say
3 out of 5. Okay, good.
It wasn't great. It wasn't like, oh my God, you have to go watch this. It was like, if you want to watch something really weird and be like, why in the hell am I watching this? Then maybe you should go. If you want to watch something where you're like, holy hell, what am I watching?
But there is a shock factor to it. So keep that in mind. And if you want to be shocked, this is the one to watch. So
trigger warning.
If you the winter is coming, and if you're looking to find something to watch on any one of your streaming devices, or you have Amazon, go watch it. But I think I walked away with more questions than answers. And if I have to jump on Google and start digging deeper into it, when I didn't really care, I shouldn't say care. It wasn't that much of while the cult has grown, I don't see them to be a danger, although I would like to see them brought down. And I don't know.
Right.
Like you said, there's no criminal activity going on that we know of.
Let's say what we liked about it and what we didn't. We'll do that too. What I did like about it is I liked the fact that they did show how you can be sucked into a cult. Something that you think is not a cult, but you're coming in and it seems like something different than what it is on the outside or on the inside. You're seeing an outside version and you don't realize what you're getting sucked into. They did a really good job at that. But I will say some of the footage is dated and a little odd. And it's grainy. It's worth a watch if you're interested in cults and you just are, and you're hearing what we're saying and you're like, oh my God, I'm interested in this and I want to see it. But it certainly doesn't come super highly recommended. There's some weirdness to it too. And so I will agree with Andrew that what I didn't like is that it didn't have a really clear explanation at the end saying this leader at the time, at the ending of this documentary was in this location doing this with this many followers. You had to go and do your research online to figure that out. And that's what I did.
They did do when they said that Joe Smith has left the cult, and I think they do say in some of them they say today he is a professor.
Yes, they did go back and do that.
Yeah. So, but they don't say what Jamie Gomez is doing or where he is today, and that's the main. He was the main protagonist in this, and I want to know what he's up to. And Alan, God, I wish would love to get him on the show because then we could really talk to him and get some answers.
The only thing I can think of is that he didn't want to totally date the documentary because he didn't know, if you're watching it like we're watching it in 2024, it came out in 2016, but he could have said at the time of this documentary's airing, this is where the leader was and this is what he was doing. And these were the followers, the amount of followers he had.
And keep in mind, a lot of the video was video recording tape, like VCRs back in the 90s.
Yes.
So I don't know if they put them through filters or AI, but it did look a lot. Some of it was nice. Some of it was grainy. Some of it was fuzzy.
Yeah.
But that was the time. That was the technology back then. So.
And I don't think there was a lot of AI in 2016. So I don't think they had that option. Maybe they'll redo it. They could revamp it and improve some of the video quality. I
would ask Alan to do an update on it, because if they're now up to 4,000 and they're in another country, maybe Alan has washed his hands of it and he moved on and he doesn't want to deal with it. And I get that. But I would watch if there was a follow-up to it and what he's up to today. Maybe there's some. We talk about
but
this
we're
sometimes.
Interested in cults, right?
Absolutely. But maybe
we have an interest.
Maybe there was a lawsuit. Maybe Michelle went after him, but he didn't mention that. And maybe he decided to just tell his story and then leave it be.
And then leave. Yeah. So well, that's our assessment of Holy Hell. So
holy shit.
Yes, exactly. And we want to thank all of you for joining us and listening today. And do you have something else to say before I go into the closing, Andrew?
No, other than we got our first review today. So by the time this will air in a couple of weeks, so maybe we'll have more. But please, folks, we would really appreciate. Melody and I are working almost every day. We are working every day. Melody's doing a lot of behind the scenes work, booking guests and writing the show notes and researching. And I'm going to be honest, because Anonymous Andrew is always open and honest. Melody keeps great notes of every interview we do, and this documentary, she's. I don't know if you were a stenographer in the court system one day, but you do a great job at taking notes. I don't. So many times when we discuss something, I rely on Melody to refresh my memory. But this particular cult documentary I watched just 2 nights ago, so it's fresh in my mind. So, all right, listen, thanks for watching or listen. This may be on YouTube eventually, but thanks for listening.
Yes.
And if you have a snowy night somewhere in December, wherever you live, and you and your significant other want something to watch, watch Holy Hell. Yeah, that's all I can say. All right.
So we want to thank all of you for tuning into Cultimatum. Your support is always appreciated. Please take a moment once again to rate and review our podcast on platforms such as Apple and Spotify. And again, please give us also a review on Spot or Apple, a written review. And then on Spotify, you can also leave comments on the individual episodes. And don't forget to follow, share, and keep listening to all of our latest episodes.
And you can also show your support by joining our Facebook group under the name Cultimatum Podcast.
And you can also find us on platforms including Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, and YouTube.
Folks, we are also asking for your support financially. In the show notes, you will see a link to buy us a cup of coffee. You click on that, and you can donate $5 or $10 to the show. Melody and I would greatly appreciate it. And if you have a cult or human trafficking experience you'd like to share with us, please feel free to contact us at cultimatumpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, and if you are an ex-cult member looking for any additional support, you can consider joining the Cult Escape and Recovery group on Facebook.
And if you're interested in hearing more from me, you can find me on my other podcast, Anonymous Andrew, Life and the Choices We Make.
And as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you're not alone.